Welcome to another video. So today we're going to be having a look, we're going to do a spray out, we're going to do a pattern test of the GTI Pro Lite caps, or the Pro Lite as it's now called, Tekna Pro Lite if you're in the US and the Americas. All exactly the same gun, just different designations, but exactly the same tool. Been around for ages, very vulnerable, very good, very easy to get on with, but they do make quite a range of caps, and the only thing that differs is the caps. So we're going to use it in 1.3, which is fitted down. We'll use it in 1.3 throughout. Now I've got 6 different caps here I'm going to try, and some of you will be saying, well, it's only available with 3 or 4, depending where you are as to what's available. But we'll run through what they are and what they're supposed to do. I'll put a picture up in the corner there so that you can get a better look at the cap to see the difference. But we've got the TE10. Now the TE10 is normally regarded as, certainly in the UK anyway, is regarded as a base coat cap. It's not particularly fast, uses about 9 CFM of air, actually 9.5 according to Devilbiss, but about 9-10 CFM of air, so it's not overly air hungry compared to some. Can do clear coat as well, but it's actually quite slow for clear coat, but gives a very good finish. I'll put a link in the description to various videos using these guns so that you can see them in action if you want to. But that's what that's for. It can be multi-purpose cap, quite slow for clear coat, but actually quite good at everything. Ideal for the beginner really, as a general round cap. You know, if you're only going to get one cap, get the TE10, and it's known as the TE10 everywhere as far as I know. Then you get the TE20, which is that one there. Put it the right way up just so you can see the TE20. So the TE20 differs in that the air holes are quite a bit bigger than the TE10. Hopefully you can see the air holes there in the, come on, that's it, you can see the air holes there. As I say, I'll put a picture up there anyway so that you can get a better idea. But the air holes are quite a bit bigger, which means it actually uses quite a bit more air. But it also means that it's quite a bit faster. Ideally used as a clear coat cap for OEM finish, but you can use it for base coat and it works very, very well. But it does put out more material, uses about 12.5 CFM of air, so uses quite a bit more air. If you're at home, in a home environment and you haven't got loads of air, that might be a problem. But certainly a very good all-round cap for the person that wants something a bit faster. Then we have the T110 cap. Now the T110 cap varies or differs from the TE10 in that the air horns are quite a bit shorter. If you can see there, the air horns are quite a bit shorter than the TE10. The air holes are very similar size. This camera keeps trying to focus on my face, which is why it's looking awkward, but you can see there that the air holes are actually a similar size. It uses the same amount of air, about 9.5 CFM. I reckon slightly less actually, but it's more or less the same. This is designed for the flattish finish, according to the Devilbiss, that you can get really. So it's designed for like custom paintwork and that, for a very flat finish. But I know a lot of places, including the US, you can't get this due to emissions. I'm pretty sure it's due to emissions. So a very, very good cap, used by custom painters. Can do base coat as well. I've done base coat with it. Normally regarded, as I say, as a flat clear coat cap. Then we have the HVLP caps. We have the HV30. Now the air holes in that are huge. If you compare that to say the TE20, which is that one there, you can still see that the air holes are much bigger in this one, the HV30, than they are in the TE20, which means it's going to use a lot more air. HVLP, so you would normally hold it closer to the work. The TE20, I normally hold about 6 inches, maybe 7 inches, depending on what you're doing and what finish you want. The HV30, about 5 inches normally, 125 mil if you're in metric. 16.5 CFM of air, a lot of air. Very good cap. What it does is it does save material at the expense of air. but it certainly does save material. Capable of doing both base coat and clear coat. Much more regarded as a base coat cap, but as I say, it can do clear coat and it does it very, very well. Relatively slow compared to the air consumption, like all HVLP caps are generally. What you're paying for, or what you're using it for really, is to save material and to protect the environment, and to, you know, keep the environmental protection agencies happy. Now I've also got a HV25. Now that's one of the reasons for doing this video again, is that I've never had a HV25, and I've only just got this. So I had it about 2 months, and it's actually regarded by some as sort of like a hybrid, and it actually is sort of like a hybrid. It's got more or less the same size holes as the TE20, but it does vary. The holes in the center are slightly offset from the center hole where the tip protrudes. So it is a different cap, and it does spray slightly differently. Designed for a lower air pressure. The TE10, the TE20 and the T110 are designed for 2 bar, so 29 psi. The HVLP caps, or the HV25 and the HV30, are designed for 1.75 bar, about 25 psi, something like that. But this thing actually works pretty good. It behaves similar to a TE20, but with lower pressure. So it's actually quite a good cap to have, and I'm glad I've got it, but it took me ages to get it. Not very popular in the UK. I think you'll find that's called a TE25 in the US. It's called a HV25 here, but it's called a TE25 in the US. 12.5 CFM, so the same as the TE20. I've also got here a T3. Now the T3 is actually now called a TE20. The T3 came off the GTI Pro version, pressure fed. So it's for a pressure fed gun, but it does fit and it does work on the gravity fed, which is the gun we're using today, and we're particularly concentrating on, which is what I always use basically. I'm not geared up for gravity, but it does actually work. It produces quite a peculiar pattern. Now it's got quite big air holes there, as you can see. Let's get the, where's the HV30? Nothing like being prepared, is there? There's the HV30. You can see it's not as big as the HV30, but they are a bit bigger than the TE20. Air consumption I'm not really sure of, only that it's probably about 13.5 CFM, something like that. But what it does is it gives you quite a small, very wet pattern normally. We'll see that in a minute anyway. But it means it gives you a fast but very flat finish. So not normally used on the gravity fed, but I do use it. I haven't done a video with it actually, and I must do a video with it, but you'll see what the pattern's like. It's quite a different pattern, so worth getting hold of. You can get one cheap, worth getting hold of. I paid about 22 quid for that, brand new, because basically nobody wants it, because a lot of people don't use pressure fed effectively, and they don't know that a T3 is exactly the same as the TE30. If it had TE30 on it, it'd probably be worth 60 quid used or whatever. But anyway, it's the same cap, just a different colour bezel around the outside, which I actually think looks pretty good because it makes the gun look a bit different. But the Teknas are often like that in the US anyway. So what we'll do, apart from waffling on, what we'll do is we'll set it all up, and we'll go through these caps and we'll see what pattern they make, and hopefully it just comes over as a better video than the one that I did before, because that looks pretty naff really today. All right guys, see you in a second. Okay, so we're going to start with the TE10. I'm going to set the pressure to 2 bar, so 29 psi. Just check that, see if it's 2 bar. Yeah, 2 bar. We've got the fluid on full, we've got the fan on full, and we've obviously got the onboard cheater valve fully open, so that we're letting the flow of air straight through, so that our gauge is actually correct. So, as I say, 2 bar. Normally I would run this about 1.8 bar for base coat, 2 bar for clear coat. and I would normally run it at 1.3 for clear coat and a 1.2 for base coat, but you know, it's only approximate. You can work, most of these things will work either way, you know. So distance will be about 6 inches, and I'll keep it the same for all of them. I know I said with the HVLP normally you're a bit closer, but I'll keep it the same for all of them so the pattern's more representative, and we'll see what we get anyway. So just a short burst. So that's the TE10. See a nice even pattern. What I do is I'll get these down quite quickly because it's quite cold in here, and they'll start to run, and it will look less even than it actually is. So I'll put that down there. I'll get the other ones on board and we'll keep going. Okay, so now we're going for the TE20. Again, obviously I said I'll keep the 1.3 tip in. TE20 cap. We're going to set it again to 2 bar. Now you'll notice, or you should notice, this gauge will read less because it's using more air. We need to pump the air up to get the same pressure going through, and that's one way of knowing whether a cap is actually using more pressure or not, as long as you haven't adjusted the gauge, which I haven't. Obviously it's exactly the same. All I've done is taken the cap off. So let's try it and see what happens. Yeah, it's saying 1.7 bar. So I'm going to adjust that up to 2 bar now. There, 2 bar. So we're on 2 bar again. Just over. Yeah, 2 bar. 2 bar. So we're on 2 bar. All the settings are exactly the same. As I say, I'll keep the distance the same. And let's see how the pattern differs, shall we? If it does. Yeah, it's a slightly thinner pattern and slightly bigger. Not as different as I thought maybe they would be, but having said that, it definitely puts out more material. So you're getting the same pattern, but it's going to be wetter. As I say, I'll get this down because this stuff's not going to go off very quick at all. Yeah, it's a slightly different pattern, slightly bigger. Anyway, we'll run through the patterns at the end anyway. So I'll get the next cap on and we'll carry on. Okay, so now we're going for the T110, still keeping it at 1.3. I find this actually works best at 1 point with a 1.2 tip. Seems to give you a flatter finish. Slower, but a flatter finish. But anyway, we'll try it in 1.3. Still works fine in 1.3. Now you'll notice I obviously haven't changed anything apart from the cap. So because this cap is using less air, you should notice this gauge show about 2.3 bar, something like that, or 23 as it will say. So let's try it. Yeah, exactly that. So we'll bring it down to 2 bar again. Two bar. So we're at 2 bar. Again, about 6 inches away. And see what we get. Similar pattern to the other ones. You can see it's actually less material. The length of pull is going to be about the same. You know, I've got no accurate way of doing it properly, but I do tend to get these things reasonably right. Again, as I say, this is a good cap for a flat finish, although it's not available everywhere. Let's put the other ones on and see what we get. Okay, so now we're going to go with a HV25. Now if you remember, when we did the TE10, we set that to 2 bar, so 29 psi, and we then put the TE20 cap on, and that shot down on the gauge without touching it. It shot down to 1.7. We then went back to 2 bar for the T110, which should use the same amount of air as the TE10. So if this is using the same amount of air as the TE20, which the Devilbiss claim, this should show 1.7 or thereabouts, which is 1.7 bar. So let's see if it does. 1.6, 1.7. So yeah, I mean, what they're saying, 12.5 CFM, I can fully believe this is about right. because it's exactly the same as the TE20. So let's see what it's like. Normally, as I say, you would hold this a little bit closer, but I'm going to keep the distance the same just so that it's comparable. You know, I have to make a choice really of one or the other, or maybe I'll do one there, one there. In fact, I will do that. Let's go for the normal 6 inches there, and then we'll go a little bit closer, which is what you would normally do, and again you just get a smaller pattern. But yeah, you can see that it's definitely a smaller pattern, tighter pattern, a bit wetter as well, quite wet. I'll get this off quickly because otherwise it will run and it will look odd. But yeah, we'll run through all these later anyway, so we'll go through them all again. So I'll put the other caps on and we'll see what that does. Okay, so now we've got the HV30 on. Now this thing uses loads of air, about 16.5 CFM. If you haven't got the air supply for this, you just won't be able to get it up to pressure. Designed to run at 1.75 bar, so about 26 psi. I'm going to run it up to 1.8 bar, I think, rather than keep it at 2. I kept the HV25 at 2 bar, but I'm gonna put this down a bit because you wouldn't use this at such high pressure. What you will also find is that unless you've got a lot of air coming through, you won't be able to get this gun up to anywhere near that pressure. So what I've done is, you'll notice the pressure on the gauge there has gone up by about half a bar, and that's because I've adjusted my air supply up. That, by the way, is brilliant. You can see it, well, I don't know whether you can see it, but those filters are completely clean. Anyway, so I've adjusted the air pressure up, but what you'll find is when I actually pull the trigger, this will be quite low in pressure, about 1.5, 1.6 bar, and that's just because this is consuming so much more air than the HV25, but we'll see anyway. We'll see where it is. 1.7, so it's at 1.7 bar. So the difference between the TE10 and the TE20 is amplified again, because that uses the same as the TE20, is amplified again, as I say, about 16.5 CFM. So we'll set this to about 1.8 bar, which is what you'd normally use it at. 1.8 bar. And in fact I'll do 1.8 and I'll do 2 just to make it even, in case people think it's not. So again, I'll do 6 inches and I'll do 5 inches, and I'll do it at 2 bar, 29 psi, and a bit closer, which is how you'd normally use it. A bit off target there, but that's how you normally use it. So that's the HV30. And again, I'll put a link in the description if you want to see these things being used in action rather than just as a spray out. And now I'll get the T3 cap and we'll see what that does, and I think that'll be quite interesting. So now we'll try the T3, which is actually the TE30, same cap as I say, it's just for the older version. Right, so let's have a go. Now I've left this on the same as we got at 1.8 bar for the HV30. So let's see what this actually runs at, and we can get an idea of what this is going to draw. 0.22, so it's actually drawing less than the HV30, which is what we thought, well, what I thought, because it's got similar holes to the TE20. So let's get this down to 2 bar. Wrong way, that's it. Okay, so 2 bar. Now, I think you'll be quite interested in this pattern. It's quite a squat pattern, but it does give a really good finish, this cap. So here we go, 6 inches out. So there we go. You can see it's a very small wet finish, but it makes it incredibly quick and really flat I mean, you can't see it that way. As I say, I'll do a video with it. I haven't used it loads, but it was recommended to me by somebody once years ago, and the pattern looks odd, and I knew it would look odd, but it does actually give a really good finish. Anyway, I'll get the camera down and we'll go run through it and just have a closer look at all these. Go TE10, as I say, normally a base coat cap, but very good for clear coat. Quite slow really, but very good. TE20, normally recognised as a clear coat cap for like a standard factory finish, but can be used, actually not too bad for base coat, I've found anyway. T110, not available everywhere as I say, but it does give a relatively flat finish. The T3, which is this oddball, as I say, it's a very round, small pattern, but it does give a really flat finish and reasonably quick because it's quite wet normally a wet finish. So HV25 HVLP, good intermediate cap that. And sorry about I dropped the I dropped that one there on there, but yeah, that's the pattern with the HV30. Again, a good cap. Most of these, as I say, I've used separately and done videos on, so I'll put a link in the description. I will do a video with this one just to see what it's like, so that people can see what it's like. But anyway guys, I hope you think it was a bit more professional than the last video I did. But yeah, as ever, thanks for watching. Cheers, bye bye.